Hello, everybody, and welcome to Firebase After Hours. Today, we have a really amazing topic, as always, and I'm super excited to introduce you to our guest. But before we do that, let me quickly set the ground rules. So you know the drill. Be nice to each other. You can ask questions on the live chat, and we will try to get through all of the questions you ask there. So please be polite. If you have any questions we can't answer, we'll try to get the answer after the stream and then reply in the comments. If you watch this stream as a recording, you can also still post questions into the comments below, and then we'll get to them. We'll keep on monitoring this for the next couple of days. That's one way to get in touch with us. There is also another way to get in touch with us, which we will definitely mention throughout the stream. So stay tuned for that. And now, let me bring in my favorite co-moderator. Here is Noe. Hey, Noe.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. It's a happy
Tuesday? Is
Tuesday.
It? Yeah,
Yep.
happy Tuesday.
It's a little different from our usual stream day, right? We usually stream on like Thursday?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's okay until we get to a point where we stream on a weekly basis, and then we should probably stick to a day. But for now, yeah. I think it's kind of okay. So the topic for today is Gemini CLI, and you brought it up. Why?
Yes. Oh, okay. So we have this colleague, and he was pinging me during the last live stream to review some CLs for the Firebase MCP server. And I was thinking, okay, now it's time to seek my revenge and bring him on to the live stream to talk about the Gemini CLI. And I think we have a new feature that we added to the Gemini CLI or something like that. And this person would know exactly what that is.
All right. So why don't we bring him in? Here is Joe. Hey, Joe. How are you?
Hi, y'all. And Noe, really sorry for sending you reviews. Thank you for reviewing my PRs. It is very appreciated.
Yeah, of course.
So maybe to introduce yourself, Joe, can you tell us who you are, what you do on Firebase, and maybe how long you've been on the team?
Yeah, I'm Joe Hanley. I'm an engineer on Firebase based out of the Bay Area. I've been working on Firebase for going on 7 years now. And specifically, I work on the Firebase Tools CLI, the new Firebase MCP Server, and Firebase Data Connect, along with a bunch of other projects in the past.
Okay, very cool. And I think we'll cover many of these today. But before we do that, we always have a little icebreaker. So it's for the three of us and also for everybody on the stream. So our question for today is, what is your favorite dessert and why is it tiramisu? Noe. You go first.
well, before the live stream started, we were all talking about Italian desserts. And I actually thought of a story. So I'm not going to say tiramisu. Actually, I love tiramisu, but I can't eat it because it's got like the espresso powder in it. And I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or something, but I've gotten like really sensitive to caffeine. So I'll have like half a cup of coffee in the morning and then I'm wired until like, midnight. And then I realize it's decaf. I'm like, oh, it's not as much caffeine, and then I fall asleep. But anyways, the Italian dessert that I was thinking of was gelato. And when I lived in Portland, Maine, I had there was this gelato shop, and for every degree below freezing you would get that percentage off the gelato. So one time it was like -10 outside Fahrenheit, and I got 40% off of gelato at this store. That's my Italian dessert story. I thought we were going a different way, so I had that one prepared.
Very nice. How about you, Joe? What's your favorite dessert? It can be Italian or non-Italian.
I do love tiramisu, but I think my favorite has to be mint chocolate chip ice cream. There's a couple really good ice cream shops around where I live, and that's just my go-to.
So before we started the stream, Noe asked you, are you American? So mint chocolate chip, that sounds a little bit British to me.
No, I'm American, and I think it's an American classic as well.
Is it?
I've been eating mint chocolate chip since I was 5 years old.
All right, so I need to try it next time I come visit.
Have you had chocolate mint chip? It's just the inverse. So rather than like chocolate chips, it's mint chips in chocolate ice cream. I don't like it.
So my favorite dessert, I think, would also be gelato and probably cookies or mango. And specifically the kind of mango where you have the impression that you actually bite into a mango because it's so intense. So everybody on the stream, let us know what your favorite dessert is so that we know what our audience is like. Also, if you want to let us know where you're dialing in from, that would also be super fun to see if we have representation from all the continents, for example. All right, so Gemini CLI. Joe, can you give us the 1-minute elevator pitch? What is the Gemini CLI and why is it the hot new stuff?
Yeah, so Gemini CLI is a way to get Gemini to help you write your code right in your terminal. For me, it's my favorite way to pair with an agent on whatever I'm working on. Yeah, it can read your files, it can write code for you. If you give it the right tools, it can interact with services like Firebase, and it's a really great way to supercharge your development.
So sorry, can I ask one more question, and then you get your turn, Noe. So why is why is it so amazing to do that from the command line, right? I mean, we've got agents that sit right in our IDE, but for some reason, it seems that everybody is very excited about doing this from the command line. And when I first heard about it, I was very surprised because the command line tends to be this very verbose environment. You have to be very specific, and it has a very limited user interface, and everything is kind of like sequential, and it's hard to rearrange stuff. And it seems limited in comparison to what you can do in the IDE. So what is it that makes this so good?
Yeah, so I think, to be clear, agents in your IDE are also a great way to use them. I really like using the CLI because the terminal is a really great way for the Gemini to interact with other parts of your computer, to easily pull in other files, to reach outside of your computer onto the internet. And yeah, the terminal is more limited. It's only text, but agents do a great job of understanding text, understanding error messages that might be buried in a IDE. So I could see why folks like using agents in other contexts, but I find that it works really well there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like from the terminal, you can always get to some tool. Like most tools that I use from the terminal. And if you have Gemini there, you can just like kind of, say, hey, I want to accomplish this task of like compressing this or running this or doing this. And from the IDE, you got to like find the right button. Whereas from the terminal, you just got to remember that command from the documentation that you read 6 years ago, which is usually what I do. Where I like Stack Overflow it and now it's ask Gemini, hey, what was that command that does the thing?
Yeah, and Gemini is great at coming up with commands that I didn't even know existed. So the other day I wanted to start up a React app, and I asked Gemini to do this. And normally I would have gone searched what the command to set up a template was. It found it right away and just ran it for me, which was very cool.
Nice.
Should we, do a live demo maybe, and see it in action.
Sure. Let me
So
figure
if you share your screen, I can show it on the stream. All right, there we go.
Yeah, so this is my terminal. I've got Gemini CLI installed along with some extensions that we'll talk about later. So to get started, I just run Gemini. And now I have an agent right here in my terminal. So we can start off with something easy like, hey, Gemini, what's your favorite dessert?
Nice.
I think you said
Let's
desert
see.
there, right?
It's a horror.
But I understood what I meant.
Oh,
and it
classic
also loves
tiramisu.
tiramisu. But it would like me to get back on to point. So yeah, let's maybe start up a React app for me. And this is what I was talking about before. It pulls up the perfect command to get that started. I'll let that run always, just so we don't have quite as many prompts to go through. And this will take probably a minute or so. It has to run some npm installs. So, things coming over the network always take some time.
Download the internet first.
Yep.
Although I find npx is or Node is better than Gradle in this regard.
Yeah, it's not too slow. I'm not much of an Android dev myself, so I've not done a ton of work there, but I've heard it's a little bit more of a grind waiting for things to compile and install there.
Yeah, the only thing with Node is that
better,
you end up with those giant folders, and then oftentimes when I want to copy a folder with a tiny little test project, I wonder, why does it take 2 minutes to copy this simple app? And then I realize, oh yeah, it's the Node folder, the modules folder.
Yeah, Node modules is a scary thing sometimes. Oh, look at that. It has finished up. I don't think we need to start quite yet. Now, I'm actually going to show off something that I've been working on for Firebase specifically. So a few weeks ago, we launched this Gemini CLI extension for Firebase. So this is a thing you can add to your Gemini that will supercharge it with a bunch of tools and prompts that make it good at using Firebase. So I'm going to run the Firebase init command here.
So is that part of the Gemini CLI?
This is something that was added into the Gemini CLI through the Firebase MCP server. So if you're using Gemini CLI, you can run a command to install it yourself easily. And if you're using other agents, you can set it up as an MCP server by adding it to your mcp.json file.
So are you using Firebase as an MCP server, or do you have the Firebase extension installed for Gemini?
Those are sort of the same thing. The Firebase extension for the Gemini CLI will set up the Firebase MCP server for you.
Okay.
So if you're using the Gemini CLI, it's the easiest way to get up and running with these powerful tools. If you're using other agents, you can just set it up like an MCP server.
I had a look into the Firebase extension recently because in the launch blog post it said, hey, we support the web and Android and Flutter, I think. And then I was disappointed that it didn't support iOS right from the start, and I wanted to understand how to add support for that. And then I looked a little bit at the code, and it seems to me that the Firebase extension for the Gemini CLI is a relatively small piece of plumbing, if you will, and most of the work is done in the Firebase MCP server. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, that is correct. And I think after you saw that, I saw you sent a PR to the Firebase MCP server to add that support, which gets to our next point, that the MCP server is open source. So if there are features missing, folks can request them or submit PRs for them.
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, so back on track. Firebase init?
Yeah, so I ran Firebase init, and as you can see, it tells me it can help me set up services for my React app. Let's do AI logic, because I've worked on backend services my whole career here. I know them pretty well, but I could honestly use a little bit of help using the AI logic product because I'm not as familiar with it. Cool. So now it's going to ask me if it can use some tools from the Firebase MCP server. I'll allow it to use all of them because I trust them. And now it's going through the many web apps I have on this project.
Oh, wow.
But it happens to see that there's one that just sounds like the right one. We're in the after hours folder. It knows we're in after hours, so it's going to use after hours test. And this
Nice.
looks great to me. But if I wanted to use a different one, I could choose a different name, or I could ask it to create a new one for me. And I'll tell it, yes, that sounds good. Now it's going to download my configuration and set up a file for me, and I will allow it to make these changes. Oh, and I didn't mean to open that up in external editor, but if I wanted to, I could. I think that looks good to me, though. Let's see how I save this. Great. And
So what happened there? Did you?
I meant to hit this option, and instead I hit this option.
Okay.
Which is a great feature of the Gemini CLI. If you ever see that it's about to do something that you think is slightly wrong, you can always step in and help. I really do like how it gives you this like step-by-step flow through what it's making. But in this case, it was totally right. So I will allow always. All right, now it's going to make sure it has the latest version of the Firebase SDK, and we'll install that for me.
How does it know what the latest version is?
Well, it just, as you can see, it just runs npm view Firebase version.
Oh, and that goes to npm to find out the latest version. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is, I think, really the cool thing about the Gemini CLI. It can kind of just use all the tools that are available in the terminal to answer questions it has about the outside world. Because I think we've all run into the thing with LLMs where you ask it a question and it gives you a really accurate answer from 6 months ago. And the tools that are available to Gemini CLI really help with that issue.
Nice. Okay. I didn't even know npm view was like a command you could run.
Yeah. Same here.
Oh, looks like Joe had his fiber line cut.
Oh. All right. Let's see. Well, he'll be back in a minute. All right. While we're waiting for him.
Yeah.
So what have you done with the Gemini CLI so far?
So you know how monthly I do the Firebase deep dives and I like record content for it? What I used to do was I would sit down and write the entire code for the Gemini CLI, or not for the Gemini CLI, but for like the deep dive every month. And it would be like a South Park episode where, you know, it's 6 days to production. Yeah. So I'd get the release notes like 3 days before. I'd spend 1 day writing the demo, and then the next day writing the script, and then I would send it out to you and be like, Peter, I'm recording in like 12 hours. Can you review this? And then you would come in
like, I'm asleep
at the final minute. Yeah. right before it goes live to record. And then you'd send me a whole bunch of feedback right after I record, you know? So what I've been doing now is I've been handing off a lot of the UI things, the things I don't like doing, to Gemini CLI. And I am not a UI guy. Like, I dress myself, you could tell, right? So I don't know how to make things, you know, look good on a screen. And that's where Gemini CLI kind of fills those gaps for me. It's like my designer that I use, essentially.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, I think
Joe's
we've got
back.
Joe back. So
Yeah.
here he is.
Yes.
And I think he looks sharper than before.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. My
No
internet
problem.
it seems to be a little choppy. While I was gone, all that you missed was me running npm install, which in the same way that my internet dropped out and messed up the stream, it also messed up the install. So I asked Gemini to try again, and it worked right away.
Nice.
Was there, did Gemini run a command to disconnect your internet there? Or?
I hope not. That would be a little scary, right?
Yeah. Wasn't sure if it just
frankly,
restarted your router for you.
Maybe one day I'll also be able to ask Gemini to fix my internet when it breaks.
That would be cool.
Cool. So now it is asking me what AI features I'd like help implementing. Honestly, I don't really know which one of these I want, but I do know what I want to make. I want to make an app that takes a portrait. Oh, typing on live stream is very difficult. And
Doing well.
puts a funny Halloween costume on it. And Gemini is smart enough to realize, usually, hopefully, that that is generating images from a image and text input.
Mhm.
And it should pull down the right documentation to learn how to do that, and pretty much just take it from here and write my app for me. So this directory, we started with nothing. We put in a template React app, and now Gemini is spinning away. And cool. So first thing, it wants me to make sure that my project is on the Blaze plan, because the model I'm using is going to require the Blaze plan. But this project is already on Blaze.
Could you ask it to check this for you?
That is something that we probably should add to the MCP server. That's
Quick,
we haven't done that one
request.
yet, but that's a good feature request, Peter. Yeah, and so it came up with a plan to add this feature. It's going to enable AI logic on my project. It's going to implement a UI in my React app, and then it's going to integrate that UI with the Firebase AI logic service, which sounds right to me.
I found you can be even more terse. You can just type Y, and then you just a letter, and it will still understand.
Does this, what it's doing right now for the Firebase AI logic, is this from the MCP server, or is this from the extension, or is the extension entirely based off the MCP server? Because I know you can add like context files and things.
Yeah, so our extension is pretty much just the MCP server plus a little bit of context on how to use the MCP server well.
Okay.
But if you're using the MCP server from something other than Gemini CLI, it should still work 95% as well.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, because I was curious how it's knowing to like how to use AI logic, because I feel like it's one of those things that like it might have to do a web search for, like maybe it hasn't been indexed by Gemini yet, or things like that, right? So I was just kind of curious where it got to. That was fast.
Yeah, and let's see if it works.
A lot faster than I could do it, at least.
Certainly, me as well. All right, I'll take my headshot. And what costume should I put on?
A banana.
All right, and let's see if it is generating. Such is the danger of a live demo. Let's see what is going on over here. Could not. Interesting. Let's ask Gemini to fix it. So I'm going to switch over to this.
It looks like it's still running though, right? Maybe not.
We can try generating once more.
If you hover over if you right click on the image that should be showing and you say inspect, that might give you a hint as to like what's going on. Oh, it says here you go. You see that?
That seems...
I think it's taking the prompt output, the text output, instead of the blob.
Yeah.
Output. Okay.
Let's ask it to fix that. So I'll shut down the server. The image isn't showing up after I generate it. Can you fix that?
Now, Joe, let's say it worked perfectly this time, but it does not work this time, right? We're just doing the inverse. How is there a way to be like, oh no, like revert those changes? You made a mistake.
Yeah, I believe there's a checkpointing feature. I have not used it a ton myself. But the other thing that when you're working in like real serious projects where you want to be careful about changes and are worried about that, I find the best way to handle that is to review code in this edit window before it goes.
Yeah.
So
or just like a git commit like halfway through.
Yeah, I think also if you just ask Gemini, if I just told Gemini, hey, that didn't work, can you revert that change? It'll also revert it for me.
Okay,
So
cool.
let's see how this looks now. Put a banana costume on me.
We also got to ask it to add a spinner. I'm like holding my breath over here.
Oh,
hey!
That's not too bad.
That is some good inspiration for this Friday.
It gave you arms too.
Yeah. And
your arms look like that?
I think I'm not quite wearing the same sleeves and have a little bit more arm hair, but all in all, not too bad.
All right, yeah.
And yeah, adding a spinner is also something we should totally do. So if we come here and we close this out and say, can you add a spinner while the image is being generated? I bet it'll do this for me.
Now, while this is being generated, so I can see that works for like AI logic pretty well. Are there other parts of the Firebase ecosystem that you could vibe into this app? Like, could you ask it to implement Firestore, storage, authentication, app check? Like, what's the reasonable limit that you think you could vibe into this?
Yeah, so this Firebase init prompt that I've been using currently has support for AI logic, as we saw, as well as Firestore, Firebase Auth, and Firebase hosting. And we are hard at work at adding more products. So if there are products that you'd like to see added first, please let me know and I will get to work on it.
Okay, perfect.
But beyond this prompt, we also have tools in the MCP server for most of our products. So if you want to do things like have your agent send cloud messages, have your agent write data connect code for you, there are tools here to help with that.
So when you say like send cloud messages, is this like a cloud message that I could deliver to like every single client to say like happy Halloween or something like that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that
Yeah.
saves you from going to the console.
Yeah, and I've heard of people using these tools to have agents help administer their app. So we have tools to enable or disable users, tools to read data from Firestore, tools to send cloud messages. And if you write up an agent and tell it to use these tools, it can do a lot of things that you'd have to do as an app administrator normally.
Okay. Huh.
I mean, even the fact that I can download your Firebase configuration object, that is really useful. right? I mean, like I've been wanting something like that for a very, very long time, and now it's there. It's just amazing.
We should have been
It's such a tiny thing, but it's still amazing.
we should have been talking to the guy that runs the Firebase CLI this
Yeah.
whole time. Just
Oh,
been like,
hey.
hey, you just added a command.
Joe, I've got a question. So
Yeah.
I've been working on setting up a couple of agent files for Swift and Swift UI development, and specifically also in the context of Gemini. And one thing that I did was add a couple of MCP servers to my Gemini configuration. One of them is the GitHub MCP server. Another one is a Xcode build MCP server, and then an MCP server for looking up Apple documentation. And I found that oftentimes when specifically when trying to work with the GitHub MCP server, and you say something like, hey, can you please open a new pull request, or can you push my code to GitHub? It will not work, or it will have the hardest time to find the correct verb for doing that, right? And then sometimes when it tries to figure out what is the best way to do it, it will give up and then say, I'll just use the command line. And then it uses the GH command line that I also happen to have installed, right? Because it seems like the MCP server isn't getting it anywhere. Is this something that you also observed with the Firebase extension, or is the Firebase extension a way to make this more reliable when working with an MCP server?
Mostly the latter, but it's always a mix with agents. So one thing I have noticed, just like you, is agents are remarkably good at just solving problems, even when they're the ones who made the problem in the first place. So while I was developing this, when I was a work in progress, sometimes a tool wouldn't work, or a prompt would be kind of misleading and send it down a rabbit hole. And oftentimes it would go through a few rounds of, oh, I broke something. Oh, that didn't quite work. Oh, that command didn't do what I expected. And eventually it would just find a CLI command and use it as a user would. I think our goal with the MCP server is to minimize that, so that we have consistent and quick ways to solve these problems that you go through every single time you write an app, which will save you tokens from your conversation with the agent, save you time, because it's not very fun to watch it sit there and spin through 6 different solutions.
Yeah. And so along those lines, there is another thing. So the other day, I was working on a sample that I needed for a demo, and I thought, okay, I'm going to turn on YOLO mode. So that is, Noe seems like this is news to him. So YOLO mode is when you start so you start the Gemini CLI with -- YOLO, like you only live once. And then instead of you having to confirm every single step, it will just like assume that you are happy with everything it does, and it'll just like continue working. I don't know if there is a safety net so that it prevents it from, accidentally nuking my disk or stuff like that. But, it seems to, happily churn through. And I was working on a specifically complicated piece of code. It was a piece of Swift code with lots of generics, and it had the hardest time to figure out what I wanted to do. So you could see how it was going through one way to solve the problem, and then the compiler failed. And then it was like, oh, I couldn't even run the test because the compile failed. So let's try a different solution. So it went through a different solution. That didn't work. It tried to yet another solution. That didn't work. And at the end, it was, oh, I failed at solving this problem. I'm just going to roll this back and get back to the original state. So I need help from you. Is this something that only happens in YOLO mode because, it doesn't have enough time to think? or is the fact that you as a user go in and you can sometimes say, well, sorry, hold on for a minute. Let's think about, if this is the right way to solve the problem. Let's maybe take a different angle here. What's your experience?
Yeah, I think it definitely does happen more in YOLO mode because there's no human in the loop to gently nudge it in the right direction. Like I know you're an experienced iOS developer. You probably could have given it some key tips on, oh, you're doing this wrong with generics. It had you been reviewing code every step of the way, which doesn't mean that YOLO mode is not worth using. It can make things fast and easy, but it definitely makes that problem worse. It happens kind of all the time. One thing I have found that makes things a little better is asking it to plan out what it's going to do beforehand. So you'll see, if you noticed in the prompt that we ran earlier, a few times it would say, oh, here's my plan for how I'm going to achieve this goal. Does this look good to you? That's something that we found when writing these prompts really does improve the performance.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. So I typically, my way of working with Gemini on real code is to first say, okay, here is what I want to achieve. Can you please write the PRD for me? And then tell it to create the design document from that. And then, plan out the implementation and show it to me first, because I also found that the Gemini CLI is very, very eager to get into coding, right? It's like, I sometimes liken it to a junior engineer who's on speed, right? So they really want to, or who's eager to get promoted. So they really want to get the code done. And then you often have to say, let's think this through. No code yet. I need to approve everything that you want to do, and then you have a much better time at achieving your goals. And also, it can always refer back to the design document.
Yeah, it's. I think you made a really good metaphor there. It is very much like human developers in that way, where it's very tempting to go right into writing code, but it turns out all those design documents and stuff we write actually serve a purpose.
Yep.
Yeah, I find that Gemini CLI goes like pretty wayward when I don't give it enough context about what I'm looking for. And I haven't tried asking it to like write the design first. I'm usually like, give me a blue button, and then like the button will take up the entire page. And I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant. I'll have to. It's never actually done that, but it's done some other like pretty crazy things, and I have to go back and say like, what do I actually want here? And it's hard because sometimes I jump into the Gemini CLI. I guess I'm a little overambitious with this, but I'll jump into the Gemini CLI and I'll ask it for something that I don't even know what I want yet, and then it just kind of like goes off and does something. And I'm like, I don't know what I want, but I know it's not that, right? And I don't know how to say that back to the Gemini CLI, like, and sometimes maybe it takes a session of me talking to it to figure out exactly what I want first, which it sounds like that's what Peter does with his, like, give me the design doc, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done this myself, but I have heard of some colleagues actually asking Gemini to interview them about what they want beforehand. So the first prompt will be like, I'm building something like a web app that suggests Halloween costumes. Can you ask me some questions about it to figure out what I want? And then after going back and forth a few times and clarifying parts that are ambiguous, it performs a lot better and tends to be a little closer to what you were envisioning in your head, even if it was hard to put what you had in your head into words.
Yeah, that's also what I find, right? So I have a vague image in my mind of what I want to achieve, and then I'll try to explain it in my weak words to Gemini, and then out comes this beautifully crafted text of, sir, this is what you want. I'm like, oh yes, please. That sounds so good. Let's do it. So we had one user ask about how you can undo changes to a code base that the agent makes. And I think we've touched on this already a little bit, but maybe you can share some best practices on what you can do, what works well, and what maybe doesn't work well.
Yeah, so I've found, at least for like the small discrete changes. So I ask to do something, it does it, it's wrong, I don't like that. It's pretty good at just undoing it when I say, please revert that. Um, the other thing I've seen folks do, and actually do through another product we have called Jules, is ask it to checkpoint its progress using Git. So say I'm in a long AI coding session and I get to a point that I feel like, okay, this is a useful kernel of something that I want to make sure I don't ruin through 6 more rounds of editing. I'll ask it to commit it, make a commit and save its progress. And that's a good way to make sure you don't end up going from nothing to kind of good thing to something that's really broken.
Joe, I find that I go from nothing to a really good thing to something that's pretty broken. And then I have that thought of like, oh, I should checkpoint this. We should probably have some sort of safeguard that just automatically, it's like a NOE filter, just automatically checkpoints it as we go.
Yeah. I've heard people setting up their Gemini Markdown file. So you can give Gemini a like kind of ambient context file that will always be there in the background, telling it to make these checkpoints. I've not tried it myself, but that could be a good solution for
me.
This is going so well. This is going so well. Oh no, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that this checkpointing is not baked in automatically into Gemini CLI, right? So this is something that happens. I think it happens automatically in Firebase Studio, right? Where every single thing that you tell the agent to do, it will end up being a commit. And I think even your prompt will be the message of the commit, right? So you can go through and you can somewhat see what the conversation was, but here it's not there. And I think obviously you can shoot yourself in the foot, but on the flip side, it gives you more flexibility, right? So for example, I've seen people who set up workflows where they'll basically just say, okay, I want you to follow the following workflow for working on things. Please create a new branch when we start working on something. And then, if anything is unclear, ask me questions about it, and then do the implementation. And once the implementation is done, commit this into the branch, and then we can take the next step, right? And for other people, they might want to have a different workflow because for reasons, right? And I think that is the beauty of this flexibility that you get. You can choose your preferred workflow that works for you and for your team, and we don't impose anything on our users. So we talked a little bit about what you can do with the Firebase extension for the Gemini CLI. And I think you mentioned that you can also connect to Firestore. Is your project set up in a way that we could demonstrate this?
I think I recently cleared out my Firestore databases because I was working on I was testing out a feature to set up Firestore Enterprise. So I'm not sure I've got something ready to go at this moment, unfortunately.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can demonstrate?
Let me look through.
What I've also noticed, and this is from Joe, but when Joe's been using Jules a lot recently, I'm actually kind of curious, like if he doesn't have anything he could demonstrate, I'm kind of curious how he uses Jules to tell it to submit CLs to the Firebase CLI for the Firebase MCP server, because the CLs I've reviewed recently have actually been like pretty good, and Joe's asked me to review them, but Joe hasn't written them.
Yeah, I would love to talk about Jules. Jules is honestly one of my favorite ways to incorporate AI. So Jules is jules.google.com. It is another connection to Gemini, but it's a more autonomous coding agent. So you connect it to a GitHub repo you have access to, you sign in through GitHub, and then you ask it a question. So I think for the PR that I sent you, I asked it to, I don't even remember which one I sent you. It might have been to add tests for some MCP tools.
There was like add tests, and then there's one thing where we reverted a change that I made to the Firebase MCP server. But it was like to implement it in a different way.
Yes. Yeah. So the big things I've been using it for lately are writing unit tests. It's great if you just say, hey, I would like to add unit tests for this file and improve the coverage. It'll do wonderfully there. I've been using it for kind of incremental changes. So there's a MCP tool called Firebase init that will like scaffold out your local code. And it supported a few products, but not all of them. I asked it to add hosting to that, and it just fired it off and kind of got it like pretty close in the first try. It came back to me with a sort of draft PR. I suggested a few things, and then it got it right. And I think I sent that out to someone on the hosting team, and they're like, "Yeah, this looks great."
But how specific did you have to get your request to Jules? Were you just like, hey, add tests, or was it like add tests to this file for this purpose to do this thing?
Yeah, I've been kind of filling that out myself. So for the tests, my prompt was something like, and let me pull this up so I remember exactly. My prompt was something like, I'd like to add unit tests for source/command MCP/tools/Firebase init. So I give it a specific file. We have NPM scripts set up that will show it coverage, and particularly for tests, it's really good at writing very thorough tests that if I was writing, I would not have the patience to cover. Yeah, I find it great because it also doesn't take up your computer. So Gemini CLI is great when you want to pair, but sometimes I just want to have the AI write it for me. And Jules is great. Like, just give it a small task, medium-sized task, let it go, and go work on something else. Go to a meeting, go for a walk, and then come back and check in.
Was that the primary motivation for using Jules instead of Gemini CLI? Was that, it's somebody else's computer and I don't have to like watch it?
Yes, I originally started working on these tests. I think there's, if you look through the pull requests, there's probably 30 or 40 PRs that say something like Jules adds tests for this file. I originally had started doing those with Gemini CLI, and I realized it was taking me like 60% of the amount of time it would have taken if I had just done it myself. And I didn't want to spend 60% of the time.
Yeah. Hey, Peter, just as an
whereas
FYI,
with Jules, I can send out 5.
Really small.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Peter's been scrolling the docs and your PRs, or Jules's PRs while you were talking. And I was like, I know we talked to Joe about how tiny font is, and Peter won't make this mistake, but it turns out Peter did make this mistake.
It looks good for me. Works on my machine.
So, and we lost Joe again. So, Joe's back. Maybe?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Internet's still a little spotty.
Yeah.
So I'm here.
We have a few questions that came into the chat. The first one that I'd like to see if you could answer is, why is Gemini not offline like Siri?
This one's a little outside of my expertise, and I think we do have some on the machine models, but my understanding is the main reason is it's pretty advanced and heavy duty to run these queries is one. And the other one is one of the ways we deal with that is we cache a ton of tokens and responses. So if there's been a similar question asked before by you or someone else's memory, it will pull from cache. So like at the end of a Gemini CLI session, if I close out, it'll tell me 79.7% of input tokens were served from cache. So the main reason is...
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah,
so we can see that?
I can do that.
Okay, let me get it up. Yep, here we go.
Yeah, so I just closed out that session we had before, and you can see here that I put in almost 900,000 tokens, and 80% of those were served from cache. So the main reason to keep these on the server, in my view at least, which is not the, I don't have the most thorough understanding, is that it makes it much, much more efficient.
Gemini is also run on like fairly beefy chips too, right?
Yes.
So without giving away too many details, I think Google has these like very specialized chips that sit in data centers as well that we run Gemini on. And then there's also there is Gemini Nano, which does run on device. If you look at the Firebase AI hybrid SDK, the Firebase AI Logic hybrid SDK, that's where you can fall back to an on-device model if the cloud model isn't available. And that's using Gemini Nano, which is available through a Chrome Origin trial. That was a lot of words that just came out of my mouth. So hopefully that all got across clearly. Some other questions that we had was, why is there so much inconsistency when working with these tools from the Gemini CLI? Do you have a good idea on that? And I'm not sure if this is referring to the Firebase tools or if it's referring to Gemini or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely noticed this myself. I think this is kind of part of the nature of a non-determinative system like agents. And a lot of what we've been trying to do with the MCP server is kind of place some guardrails on the Gemini CLI, on Gemini, I guess more accurately, and help guide these non-deterministic models in the right direction. What I will say is I found with just a little bit of well-crafted prompting, be it through your prompt itself or through markdown files in the repo or in your code base, it can really narrow down that. I think like one example I was running into was when I first started using Jules, I was having it write tests, and it would go write the tests, and as part of our test suite, we run a linter. And sometimes it would, write code that was had linting issues. No big deal. You run the linter and you fix them. It had a bad habit of changing the linter rules to match its new code instead of changing its code to match the linter rules.
I do that. Yeah. Anytime I submit code and the tests fail, you just delete the test. Like, come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I was able to fix that with just a little prompt in a markdown file saying, don't edit the ESLint configuration unless explicitly prompted to. But I do find that you just need to place little guardrails on it to really get a lot better results.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
That's a similar observation that I had, right? The story that I told you about Gemini going in circles to implement that one feature. It basically giving up and rolling back. That was basically just saying, well, I'm not going to be able to fulfill your PRD, so I'm just going to rip out the feature. That'll be, I think at one point it said, the feature is now completely implemented. It's like, no, it's not.
You know how earlier I was saying, like, I don't usually know what I want, but I know it's not this. Maybe they know what I want, and it is that.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Let's see here. A few other questions came in. Or maybe commentary. Someone brought up that they are spending credits and they don't mind when it outputs what they intend, but they don't like spending credits for fixes. Do you have any strategies so that way it can always get them closer to the right outputs that they want?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. And I'm fortunate enough to have Google pay for my credits when I'm working on Google projects, so I don't feel it as closely. What I found is oftentimes I will use AI to get like 80% of the way there. And that last 20% of polishing is would take just as much time and just as much tokens if I had AI do it. But I can take it myself and bring it over the finish line. Not always the greatest answer, because obviously that is not one of the most fun parts of software engineering, bug fixing and code reviewing and whatnot. But that's really the best strategy I found for minimizing that.
I actually really like bug fixing or trying to trace down the bugs, because you get to be like a detective to figure out like who put this bug in the code base and how am I going to fix it. And like you start going down this path, and then you determine that you yourself are the one that made the error previously and didn't write the comprehensive test case. I think that's relatively it. There's a lot of commentary in the chat, and I think Peter has been answering some of the questions there as well. Peter, do you have anything else for Joe while we have him for the next 4 hours?
Got my schedule cleared and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. So how when you worked on these features, how much of that did you write yourself? How much did you use AI assistance in that? And could you say it is bootstrapped in a sense?
Yeah, I'd say about half of the features were written by hand, start from scratch. And about half I would do like an 80-20 mix, where I have AI add this small feature, and then nowadays I have AI write the small feature, have AI review it by passing it to Gemini Code Assist. And then I come in at the end and I look through the review comments, I look through the code, I do a little manual testing and kind of bring it over the last bit of the finish line. So I would say I'm getting a good like 40 to 50% of my code through heavy AI assistance these days.
Yeah. I find it interesting that, when you work with Gemini CLI and Gemini Code Assist in GitHub, that oftentimes you'll get, a bunch of feedback on Code Assist that tells you, oh, you should be doing this, and this is not great, and, here is a problem. And sometimes it will get it wrong, and then you'll have to say, well, sorry, no, that's not right. But, maybe this is something that we should, work on to make it more consistent, right? Because it feels like if you're using Gemini in the CLI to develop your features, and then you push it up to GitHub and Gemini reviews it there, it should have kind of like the same mental model and not come up with something completely new. It feels like, your manager has asked you to do a thing, and then you do the thing, you show it to them, and they're like, that's great. Can you also do this thing, that I didn't tell you in the first place? You go back, you do the other thing, that you go back and show it to them, and they're like, that's great. But also, did you consider that? And then, you feel like, well, you should have told me in the first place. So that is how I often feel like when I have this combination there. I don't know if this is intentional or not, or just an oversight. But it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you're using that flow of having AI help you write and then having a separate instance of Gemini help you review, you're kind of just like giving it a fresh context, a fresh set of eyes to look at the code that was actually generated, which with human generated code is very useful too. But I definitely agree that you need we're not quite at replacing human code reviewers yet. I think I use it more of as a first pass, catch the obvious stuff, and then spend human time on it.
Yeah, makes sense. Noe, you looked like you had something interesting on your mind.
No, I was pinging up here to tell them I won't be making our meeting because Joe's more interesting than they are. No, and I was also scrolling through. There was one comment that came in just to confirm the issue of the deleted code eliminated the entire e-commerce mockup project we had in Firebase. I'm not sure of the context on this, and I'm trying to find the context for the last chat message that came in.
I think. Oh yeah, so it was Mario who said a while ago, "Why does AI sometimes generate so much inconsistency when creating something with those tools?" I think that was the most recent comment before that.
Yeah, which I think we chatted about, and Joe brought up. Well, Joe said it best. I'll let him say it again.
Yeah, I guess the advice I gave there was guide rails, but
That's right.
I haven't seen the chat message, but obviously losing your whole mockup app is pretty painful, and that definitely sucks. There's probably guardrails that could help with that, but that's definitely a painful one.
Yeah. I mean, if it happened in Firebase Studio, I think it should still be somewhere in the Git repo, right? I mean, the chances of Firebase Studio accidentally deleting your entire work without any possibility to get back to it, I don't know if that would even be possible, right? It would have to delete the workspace itself.
Yeah. Well, Firebase Studio also has it auto commits, right? So you can always go back previous in the chat history and click revert as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so maybe to close the loop on Mario's experience here, Mario, if you want to reach out to us, we can see if we can help, because we won't be able to fix the problem on the live stream here, but we might be able to help through the support team. Speaking of reaching out and feature requests and stuff like that, we haven't spoken about user voice. So let me set this up. So Joe, if people have feature requests, where can they file them?
The best place is on user voice. So
Ooh.
I think you'll be dropping a link in the chat there. And that is a great place to drop feature requests for this or any other Firebase features, Firebase products. The other place you can drop them is directly in the Firebase Tools GitHub repository. We pay close attention to that, and we've gotten a lot of good feature requests there. So if you have really hyper-specific things to this, you can put them in the GitHub repository, but for broader feature requests, user voice is the place to go.
Yep. So user voice is firebase.uservoice.com. You can see it on the screen right now. We will also put this into the description of this live stream. And it's a place where all our product managers and engineers and basically the entire team tends to hang out to understand what people need and what are features that they request, and what's important. And a lot of these features have been implemented in Firebase already, so it is a really useful feedback. All right. I think we've covered most of what we wanted to talk about today. Did we miss anything?
One last question. Any planned integrations with Google AI Studio and Firebase or Firebase Studio?
Ooh, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that one yet, but maybe.
All right.
I'll take a maybe.
Sounds good. All right, Joe, thanks for coming on. That was really great. And I'm a big fan of the Gemini CLI. I've used the Firebase extension for it a bunch, and it's a great way to get Firebase projects started. And I'm looking forward to a world where setting up a new project will be easier than ever, and adding new features will be, a matter of talking with your computer. Hello, computer. You need to use the mouse.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for coming on.
All right, so I need to find the correct button to end this whole thing. So thanks everybody for joining, and we will
Ciao.
see you in the next one.